we'll go ahead. I'm starting live stream, and so this will be recorded, this part. Where we're at right now is we kind of finished up a little bit of lesson 4. I guess we've got one last section of lesson 4 to look at, and that's compound inequalities. Then, somewhere in here, hopefully I got a stack of yellow papers. Oh, they are. I've got a practice test for y'all. Yes. Good. Okay. And so then we can also talk about any questions that you have over the homework from either the online homework problems or from the practice problems. So we can take a look at those. And then what we've got, once we kind of wrap that up, is I've got a packet. And this might be in Canvas. If it's not, I'll get it there. This is a review for units 1, 2, and 3, and 4. No, 1, 2, and 3. Should be 4 as well, shouldn't it? I don't have 4 on here.
Maybe that this tells 1, 2, and 3. That would be great.
It's got 4 in here. It's got some inequalities. Okay. The thing is, on the test, there are no compound inequalities. We'll take a quick look at what those look like, but this will kind of get us from the test. What I'll do is I'll look over the test a little more carefully, the actual test, and I'll make sure I took a quick look over it, that these questions kind of match up with what's on there. If there's anything on the test that it wasn't on here, Wednesday I will have another little supplement to this that will be questions that are on the test that weren't on here. But this is a good preparation. One of the other faculty came up with this to prepare his classes. He shared it with the rest of us, so I think it's a really good one. What I will do, let me see my timing, maybe between now and Wednesday, maybe on Thursday, at least by Thursday I can do it. I'll make a video with solutions for each of these problems. So I'll actually do a video working through these as a live stream. What we will have is Wednesday, we will also have an opportunity to go over these. So that's pretty much what I've got reserved for Wednesday. Today, once we finish up, it'll be kind of working on these. And my suggestion when you start with a practice test is do what you can do. When you run into something that you get stuck on, instead of trying to get help on it at that time, skip it. Try to do as many of the things that you can do so you're identifying what you know and what you don't know. And then come back at one sitting and review the things that you don't know. Okay, sort of. But try to see if you can get through it, because sometimes there's one problem that kind of you're not quite sure what to do, but if you skip it, there might be another 5 or 6 that you do know how to do, and that makes you feel better. Go over the whole thing, come back. This is 24 problems. The test is 25. The test is multiple choice. So I like to tell you is that I give you the test and I give you the answers. But for every right answer, I give you 3 wrong answers. So your job is to find which one's the right answer, right? So that also takes a little bit different strategy. So we'll maybe have another worksheet with a few multiple choice problems. Again, I'll compare so that you're well prepared, that if you complete this and whatever I give you on Wednesday, you'll have a really good idea of what the test will be like. It'll be similar problems with different numbers. And again, it will all be multiple choice. All you have to do is choose the right answer. Okay. There's 4 answers. 1's correct, 3 are wrong. You choose the right one, and that's all you got to do on the test. Yes.
You said you're allowed to use your notes on the test?
No, it's a department test, so they don't allow notes.
But you did say calculator.
Calculators, definitely, yes.
Does that mean you can use your phone as a calculator as long as that's all you use, or no?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, it's a department test, so the issue with phones is they have cameras on it, and
Oh, it's not going to be in here?
it will be in here, but it's also pretty easy to snap a quick picture and then.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So let's switch over to here. What do we need to talk about? So I'm going to show you, what do I need to show you? Let's go into MAT091. Not letting me log into my own account. Why not? There we go. Okay. That's as big as it'll let us go. We left off maybe on this part talking about compound inequalities.
107. That's where it starts. I don't know what pages on.
Yeah, mine doesn't have pages on, so if you get into the practice problems, it'll be towards the end. Question 15 in the practice problems, I believe is where I'm at.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he's on 117.
Thank
The bottom
you.
of 117. But there's other things prior to that. We're just not going to do those.
We might,
Okay.
but we'll start here. We'll
Okay.
start in the middle and work around. Okay. Or maybe we'll take one to warm up with. Let's see, what is the one just above that? We'll do these both, because this will maybe make it a little simpler. The first one's really a one-step operation. So, compound inequalities.
Are we in
Yes.
unit problem or practice problem?
Practice problems. Okay. So how is this different than what we were working on last Wednesday? We had just inequalities. How many sides are there to this inequality? Three. There's two relationships. Negative 12 is less than 4n. 4n is less than 20. Okay. So what we're going to look at, let's see if I can draw straight lines with this thing, is that there are three pieces.
What page are we on?
117.
117. So remember when we had an equation, we had an equal sign. Whatever we did to one side, we did to the other, right? This is really the same thing, except instead of just having two sides, a left and a right, we have three sides, a left, a right, and a middle, okay? But the goal is still the same. We want to get the letter, the variable, by itself. Okay, so we come to look in the middle, and And what is happening to the variable n? What operation, we're multiplying it by 4. How do we undo multiplication by 4? We divide by 4. Okay, so that's the first thing we do is we look in the middle. What do we do? Well, we're going to divide the middle by 4. But if we divide the middle by 4, what do we have to do? The other two sides. That's all that's a little bit different in these, is that there's more than one side. So we'll divide this by 4 and this by 4. We're really doing two problems at the same time. Okay, so let me clean this up a little bit. I don't need those lines quite that long. Okay, so if I take negative 12 and I divide it by 4, what do I get? Negative 3. The symbol is just the less than symbol, so I bring that down. If I take 4n divided by 4, what do I get?
N.
Just n, the 4's cancel. And if I take 20 divided by 4, I get 5. And again, I just bring the symbol down, the less than symbol here. So what it's saying is that n, the variable I've got, is trapped between negative 3 and 5. It lives in between these two values. That's what a compound inequality, there's a beginning and an end. So one way is to just kind of come on a number line. We can graph it. One endpoint is negative 3. Does anyone know why I put a parentheses there instead of a bracket?
Because it's not included.
It's not included. It doesn't have the little equal sign there. I could have also used an open circle, so we could have used either one of these, an open circle or a parentheses at negative 3. Then the other endpoint is over here at 5 somewhere. And again, I'll use a parentheses again because it's not included. And again, I could have used an open circle instead. Yes?
If it's like an improper fraction, are we expected to leave it as a mixed number, or leave it as a decimal, or leave it as an improper fraction?
I'll just say it depends on what the instructions tell you to do.
Because not every problem can be even like clean like this.
Right. On the test, it'll be multiple choice, so you just have to choose and see whatever they did with it. MAT091 sometimes asks for a mixed number. I had someone send me a message, and that was the issue, is you left it as a, and I would prefer to have them left as, quote, improper fractions, because in algebra, those are more valuable to us. Mixed numbers are not welcome in the algebra club, but yet MAT091 has you do that sometimes. Maybe we'll go back and I'll have that discussion, because it's, in algebra, mixed numbers are really bad. Because when you write numbers next to each other, when you write things next to each other in algebra, that's supposed to be multiply, but in mixed numbers, it actually means add them together. So it's not good notation. I'll just say that it'll become clear, because again, it'll be multiple choice. You'll see it. And we won't give you one that's a mixed number, one that's an improper fraction that are both correct, and mark you wrong because you didn't choose the right format. At least not on the test. But and when you run into problems with MAT091, just email me. I gave you points for that, didn't I? Did I? Or did I tell you to? What did I do?
You just told me that it was fine.
It was fine.
Yeah.
Good. And I think I went into the grade, because usually I'll go into the grade book, I'll see what you've got in there, and I say that's fine. And there's a button I can push to add all the points in. I think that's what I did, but if I didn't, I will. So okay. So those kind of
That
things.
was an error. I think everyone in the class didn't receive those points.
Just send me an email. Yeah, just send me an email. Okay. So that's what the graph would look like, is n is between these two. What that helps us is with the interval notation. we're going to just write this in sort of shorthand. We put parentheses, -3, comma, 5. So notice the variable itself kind of gets, there's nothing in there, but it's sort of implied that it's between the two endpoints. So that's a compound inequality, a starting and an ending point, and we can get it that way. So far, so good. Again, I don't see, none of these are on the, they don't have compound inequalities in the practice test, so I'm going to assume, which isn't always safe, but I do it a lot, I assume it's not in the actual test. So, but again, I'll take a really good look. If it is, we'll take a look. We'll specifically talk about it. So we'll do one more example of a compound inequality. They will help you maybe down the road, depending upon what your next math class is. So we'll take a look at this next one. It's got a two-step equation, right, or two-step process here, because we're multiplying and subtracting, and there's 3 sides. So again, whatever we do to all 3 sides. So looking at this 2v minus 5, we want to get the v by itself, the variable. What do we do first?
Divide by 2.
We will divide by 2, but we always do things backwards, so we take care of the addition subtraction first. We're actually going to add the 5 first. Because if we divided by 2, we would end up with fractions and it'd just be a mess. It might still be a mess, but it'll be a mess later on. Yes?
PEMDAS doesn't apply to this, right?
SADMEP does, right?
That's
So we do PEMDAS backwards, which is SADMEP, which I think is a cool word. I don't know if SAD is cool, but it's anything backwards is cool. Okay, so we're going to add 5. So we do it in the middle. We do it to the left. And we do it to the right. Okay. So we get 3 plus 5. 8. Bring down the less than or equal to symbol. -5 plus 5 is 0. So that all that's left is the 2v. And then we've got just a less than, not a less than or equal to sign here. 11 plus 5 is 16. We'll change our color for the next step. What's our next step? Do what?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2, because we're multiplying by 2, so we undo that by dividing by 2. And if we do it to one side, we do it to all sides. So we come back and the other 2 sides get divided by 2. Gets divided by 2. So we'll switch back. Let's go to green for our final answer. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Less than or equal is a symbol. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that's 1v. Less than 16 divided by 2 is 8. So what you'll find, it's easier, at least I believe, easier to do the graph first. And we have our 2 boundary points of +4 and +8. +4 is included, so I'm going to put a bracket here. Put the 4. 8 is not included, so I'm going to go about where 8 should be. Put a parentheses. There's 8. And v lives right in the middle. Okay. That gives us our interval notation, bracket on one end, 4, comma, 8, and a parentheses because the 8 is not actually included. And again, if you wanted to down here, you could have used open circle on the 8, a closed circle on the 4.
Question.
Yes.
I missed the part with the bracket. When you put the bracket on the other side of the
The bracket is because on this left side we have less than or equal to. So it's
okay.
whenever we have that equal to part, then we use a bracket.
Thank you.
When we don't have it, we'll use the parentheses.
Thank you.
Good. So far, so good on that? Does that make the inequalities seem that only have 2 sides, an equation and another, doesn't kind of make them seem a little easier now when you go to these? So this will be, it's good to practice them, gives you a little bit of a stretch, whether you end up doing much with them or not. Okay. Now I heard rumor, let me take a picture of this first, right? Let's see. Here's, take a picture. Okay. So we'll call this page 1. Let's see, where's it going to put it? And we'll have it put it here under notes. Oops. Go there. Okay. So there's a note saved on that. It's on the video. Had some questions. You didn't write them down. Do you know exact kind of where they are? Were they in the online homework? Were they? Okay. We can always examine it, right? Oops, I better clear the screen, right? Clean page at least. So let's go back to, and was it in Unit 4? Okay. Online homework. Is it the beginning, the end, or the middle?
I think it was the middle. I don't remember what number.
Let's take a look at 10, and we'll just click on numbers till one looks like it might be what you were looking for. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so something like this. Looks like there's several in a row that are very much like this, right? Okay. So this is good. This is not a compound inequality. This is just a single inequality, but it does have on each side of the inequality sign, as we see. Here we go. So it's got a single inequality. It's got an x on both sides, and on this side it looks like what we're going to have to do is distribute that 2. So we got a little bit of work to do here, which we will. We will solve this inequality. So solve this inequality. Write your answer as an inequality and in interval notation. Then graph the solution set on the number line. So we'll see if we can do this. Were you having problems with any parts of this in particular, or just all in general? Okay, good. So we can just start. Because sometimes I'll do this and I'll answer the whole first part. And, oh, I understood all that part. It was just the last part. So sometimes I like to jump to the last part. Of course, it's hard to do that, isn't it? Okay. So we're going to solve this inequality. Let's see, where's my... And let's go with the yellow. Do this. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room, so I'm going to move this up. And then we'll come back and there we are. Okay, so we've got this inequality. I'm going to rewrite it down here. 12x greater than or equal to 2 times negative 5x minus 22. So let's just kind of reason our way through all of this. What should we do first? Very good. Get rid of the parentheses, because parentheses kind of hold things together. We want to out where we can work on them. So we're going to take this 2 and we're going to distribute it to the 5x, and then we're going to distribute it to the negative 22. So we'll just do that step. We don't do anything to the 12x, so we're just going to rewrite that down. Greater than or equal to, and then now's the time for the work. 2 times negative 5, negative 10x. And then 2 times negative 22, negative 44. Now when we had just an equal sign, or even with inequalities, when we have x's on both sides, something with an x on something with x's on both sides, what do we want to do?
Get X by itself.
Join,
Combine, bring the family together, right? They're on opposite sides of the river. We want to have them having a nice picnic together. So bring the x's together, okay? And the way we think about it is, as we bring them together, we're getting rid of them from one side and bring it to the other. And again, we can do this in multiple ways. We could subtract 12x from both sides, or we could add 10x to both sides. Which way did we decide was probably the easier way to work with? Anything that will make a positive. Good. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually add the 10 to try to keep things positive. So what am I doing here? Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Use a red. What we're going to do first, I mean, some people say let's add 44 to both sides, but let's get the x together first so that we know which way to go. So we add 10x. We add it to one side, we've got to add it to the other. Oops. I wish I could back that up one. I don't think I can, so we'll just deal with it. Okay. I'll switch to a slightly different color though. So we've got 12x plus 10x.
22.
I'm going to write it up over here so we have more room to work. 22x. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe write in both places. Greater than. We didn't do anything with the symbol. What happened to the 10x? Negative 10x and 10x. Cancel. Those are 0. They're gone. So now we got negative 44 on the other side. Since we don't have much room, I'm just going to recopy it over here. One more step, and what's that?
divide,
Divide by what?
22.
Divide by 22 to get the x by itself. So we'll divide by 22. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. 22 divided by 22 is 1, so that's 1x. Greater than or equal to 44 divided by 22 is 2. Negative divided by a positive is negative. So what we end up with is that x is greater than or equal to negative 2. Any questions on that part so far?
So then the bracket would go on the x side and the parenthesis would go on the negative 2? Or you wouldn't do that part at all?
Well, good question. Let's do this. Let me get my pointer here. Let's come here and let's draw the line, the graph first. Okay, because the graph, when we do the graph, it puts it in order. So what we know is that negative 2, we have a boundary point, and x is on one side or the other. It's either to the left or the right. So what I'm going to do up here first is I'm going to put a dot. Now the first thing I have to decide, is it a closed dot or an open dot?
It's a closed.
Why?
Because it's greater or equal to.
Because it has the equal to. So that's the first thing. It's going to be a closed dot because we've got the equal to. So I go to negative 2 and I put a closed dot. That look good? The next thing I have to decide is x to the left of 2 or to, oops, yeah, negative 2. Is it to the left or does it belong to the right?
Right.
To the right, because it's bigger than, right? Anything bigger goes to the right. Very good. That's where I'm going to put my line segment. And let's see if I can do this right. I think I come to the dot, I think I click and go like this. And it's kind of cool because it draws a straight line even though I kind of usually don't. So it's going to go that way. Where is that arrow pointing?
Infinity.
Infinity, thank you. It never stops. It's pointing off. You're going to go for infinity. So when we come for inequality notation now, let's see, I'm going to go back here. We're just going to put in x. I like to use the little yellow arrow because it lets me choose inequalities. It lets me choose the right symbol here. Okay, greater than -2. I can just write it in. Let's see. And notice it, what did it do to me? X greater than -2.
But it's greater or equal to -2 up there in the little box.
Yeah, so that's how it does it. So this is the nice printing way. So far, so good? So we come to -2. So now we know -2 is first, and then on the right-hand side is infinity. Okay. Does -2 have a bracket or a parentheses?
Bracket.
Bracket, because a bracket is put when it's included. It's because, again, because it's a closed dot, we put the -2, we put a comma, then we put infinity, which I think you can do with a 0, 0, or is it 0, 0?
It gives you it in the box.
Okay.
If you go to the yellow box, it gives you the symbol. See it? Down. There you go. There it is.
And then what goes with infinity always? Brackets or parentheses? Parentheses. Because the idea is you never really can get there. Oh, don't give me just one. So I'm going to just, I think if I go save, oops. Let's just go up here. Let's go bracket. Okay, oh, you can choose it. We know it's going to be bracket parentheses, so we'll choose that. We'll put our -2 arrow over, and this one also gives us parentheses, either positive or negative infinity. There we go. Isn't that a better way to do it? Okay, I think we're good. Hit that, gives us that, and then we just need to submit it, and it'll tell us whether we're right or wrong. You think we're right? I hope so. There we go. We get it all. Does that kind of answer your, okay. And again, I saw that 10 and 11 were similar, so you get lots of practice with these.
And it would be open, like the circle would be open in one situation.
If it was just less than, if it didn't have the equal to
If it
part.
didn't have the equal to.
Yeah, that equal to makes that difference. And there's sort of one like that on the practice test where there's an X on both sides. So you'll get a little practice with question number 10. Not quite as bad as that one. You didn't have to distribute such, so we'll get working on that too. Yes?
There's one on the quiz. I think there was a couple of them, but I didn't, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you which number. Just try number 1 and take it.
Yeah.
It gave me like another section, and I didn't know what we were supposed to do.
So here's one. Does that look? No?
Oh, that's one other thing. I don't know.
Here's 2,
No.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, let's do that. Yeah, these I always get confused on these. I think about it way too hard, and then I get the wrong answer.
Okay. So a couple strategies on these ones too, as I look at it. When you see this select an answer, my suggestion is before you try to think of what the answer is, click on it to see what your choices are. Because sometimes I read these things, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what they're looking for. I click the drop-down list and then they want to know it's either one of these 3 things. So when we get there, it's at most, at least, or exactly. Okay, so sometimes that's easy. So that's one strategy. Of course, these open boxes we'll just have to deal with. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and get a pen. Let's see what color should. We got a choice of red, green, or blue. We'll look Red? Okay. Everyone else okay with that? Nobody has any aversions to red?
Each one could be a different color.
We can read it, okay. So first of all, what I do is, it's a word problem, so let's go ahead and highlight some numbers. And when I saw this 2.54, what do you see right next to it? Word plus, there's a math word, so I'm probably going to be adding something to this. Water is $2.54 plus you have to pay a fixed weekly fee. Let's see, what's that? Your cost for each bottle of water is this much, $2.54. You have to pay a fixed weekly fee of $240 for the booth. Your plan is to sell each bottle of water for $3.90. Okay, so I'm picking out the numbers there. Does that sound like a good deal? Your cost, $2.54, so you subtract that off because that's a cost. You're going to sell them for $3.90, so you subtract those two, that'll give you sort of the profit per bottle. But then you also have this $240 you got to pay for the whole week, right? And hopefully you don't really start making a profit until you've recovered this $240. So write an expression to represent your total cost for the week if you sell, what does that say?
72.
72.
Oh, yeah, in
Oh,
bottles.
in bottles.
Of
I was
water.
wondering. Okay. So that's a weird looking N, but we'll, in bottles of water.
Jeez.
So what is our cost going to be? Our cost is going to be,
$3.90 in.
well, does $3.90 enter into our cost?
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Oh.
That's what we're selling it for. That's a separate calculation. Our costs,
Plus 240.
okay, good. Each bottle that we buy, $2.54, times N, because N is the number of bottles, plus 240. That is our cost for each week. So we could enter that right in here. But the other thing I'd like to model as well is when you're working through these, you think that it's a computer, so you have to just enter stuff in. You can be writing things down and having notes, which I highly recommend as well. You can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, and hopefully when you're doing the homework, because there was probably a problem similar to this in the homework, or at least there should have been. So that would make these quiz ones a little bit easier. Okay, write an expression to represent the revenue from the sale of end bottles. Revenue is just money coming in. It doesn't include any costs. It's just the cash coming into the box. So how is the cash going to come in? How is our revenue going to be generated? Each time we sell a bottle, someone's going to give us $3.90. So $3.90, 3.90 times N. That's our revenue. And what we do is, the English use of the words, we tend to think of revenue and profit as the same thing, but they're different. Cost is what goes out, revenue is what comes in, profit is bringing those two together, covering our costs with our revenues.
Okay.
So,
And that's where I get it confused, because I want to subtract 240.
right. That's what we do down here when we start looking at profit. So what is profit? Well, we take our $3.90, our revenue, and we subtract off the cost. So if we subtract off, it's going to distribute to both of these. So I'm going to, it's maybe a little shortcut, but minus 2.54N, and then minus 240. So that's where that belongs. But yeah, some of you may have put it in with the revenue. That was what I always used to do, because that's when we're running a business, we kind of think of it. I don't think I made $3.90. I subtract it off as I go. But in business problems, they want you to kind of break it piece by piece and kind of make revenue just income, cost just cost, and then the profit includes the both of the two. And so what we can do here is we can combine like terms. So $3.90 minus $2.54 is going to be what? It's about $1.36. That's sort of how much we're making per bottle, but then we still have to subtract off that $2.40. And so that would be our profit here. Okay. And that's what would go into here, and we check it. And then in order to make a positive profit, you would have to sell more than so many bottles of water. How could we figure that one out?
Divide 240 by 1.36.
Why?
Because
It's correct, and we can sometimes just think about it. What is the value? What is a break-even point? What does it mean to break even?
You're even on sales and like
You covered your
In
costs.
Cost equals revenue.
applies to like hotels.
So we could look for a profit of $0 is sort of break even. So the way we go about that, I should have erased this stuff. Sorry, that was distracting probably. So what we want to do, and I'll do it over here, is we want to say our profit's going to be 0, 1.36 in minus 240. And now we can do some algebra to solve for n. And you're right, we're going to add the 240 to both sides. That sort of moves it over to the other side. Then we're going to divide by 1.36. So exactly what you saw in your mind of the right thing to do is the right thing to do. We got to sell enough bottles that $1.36 times the number of bottles gives us 240. So add 240, add 240. So we get 240 equals 1.36 times n, and then divide both sides by 1.36. And again, I've got a student in one of my other classes, my 122. She doesn't like to write it on both sides. She just writes it on the other side where it's going to, where it cancels off. She just drops it. That's perfectly fine. So there's different ways of doing things as long as you kind of understand what you're doing. So n would be equal to 240 divided by 136. Anyone got that?
176.47.
176.47. Okay. Can we sell 176.47 bottles of water? No, we can sell 176 or 177. Once we sell 177, we're making a profit, right? In order to make a positive profit, you would have to sell, and again, this is where it's good to come over here and drop down the list. At most, at least, exactly, no, not at least, 177. 176, you still have not made a profit. You're still in the negative a little bit, right? So that's what it says, 176, you're not clear. 177, I would say, is going to be the correct answer there. Does that make sense? Okay. Should we fill it in and see if we're correct? Let's see. N bottles in a week, profit, write an expression, so not an equation. So I could do 1.36 N minus 240 here. I think that's what they're looking for. So I also want to do these so that we can make sure if there's any formatting issues, we can deal with them. Not so much that I really care that whether or not it's correctly formatted, but if we can figure out how MAT091 wants them, because it's checking our answers, it'll help us to enter things the way it wants it. Let me take a picture of this screen. This page 2, and let me clear this off. Yes.
What was the O represent?
The O.
0.
0. Ah,
0.
okay.
0 profit.
0 profit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
It's 3.90 on the second one, not 3.9.
Thank you. So we come back in here. Thank you, because I would have marked it wrong, which is okay. It's okay to make mistakes because we got 3 tries at it, right? But I don't know about you. I'd like to get it right the first time so we can keep moving, right? So there we go. It all worked out. Again, and sometimes you have issues with the, sometimes it wants what, P equals, or so when it asks for an equation, we need that equal sign. When it asks for expression, we don't put an equal sign.
That's what always screws me up too, and I get so irritated. It's like, how the hell did I get it wrong?
I know. If it's any consolation, I get them wrong
I do
myself.
it like all the time.
Yeah, I get it wrong myself. I'll work through it and I'll do it exactly the same thing. But it's free. We've worked with online homework systems that would cost you $80 to $120, and they're not all that much better. This is a free system, and it's professors here that put these together, and it's got, and that's one of the things with math. It has, to be able to check answers on things that are randomized. They're getting better at it, but it's not perfect yet.
So an expression, you don't need an equal sign.
Yes.
Equation.
You need it. Yeah, equation has to have an equals. Inequality has to have one of those alligator things. Right?
Boxes, okay.
Yeah, because it's one side's bigger than the other. And an expression is no relationship, so no equal signs, no inequalities. It's just a math statement. But we'll get used to them. And again, if you do get problems and it's frustrating, the thing is it will show the answer eventually.
Yeah.
And if you look at the answer and you say, I'm pretty much right, it's just my formatting, use this issue down here. This is what I was talking about. Where is it? Oh, there it is. No.
No, up above.
Where's ask
You
the
gotta go all the way
instructor?
up, where it
No?
says, try another similar question.
No, I don't want you to do that, because then you would have to try another one, right?
Right, that's what I have to
Did you
do.
submit it? Yeah, you did.
I want you to ask the instructor, and it's gone.
Oh,
Oh, message instructor, yeah.
Where is the message?
Once you get it right, I think it goes.
Because you got it right, so why would you have to ask about it?
right, yeah.
But, so if you got it wrong, it should still be showing towards the bottom. It says, ask the instructor. Click on that. What it does is it sends it to me and just say, hey, I was right. Could you give me the points?
Oh,
And I'll,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'll hit it wrong, get it wrong, and I have to try another similar question, do it all.
Right. So don't worry about getting, and on the other side of this is I don't use the Math AS gradebook. And I'll tell you what I do in this class in particular as we get there. And I kind of wait a little bit. What I'm going to do is, and I haven't been updating the Canvas gradebook, have I?
No.
You've probably been thinking he's a slackard. He doesn't even do anything, right?
No.
This is why he doesn't have due dates, because he doesn't want to put things in the gradebook. I really don't want to put too much in there right now, is because what I want you to do is I want you to take the test first, the first test.
Let's see where you're at.
And if you get 90% or above, I'm not even going to look at your homework. I'm going to give you 100% for the homework. Okay. If you get 80 to 90, I'm going to give you 90% on your homework. So a little bit different. So as long as you're scoring 80% or above on your test, you'll get credit for everything that should have been done. Now, some people will say, well, I did all the work. Does that mean that I'm wasting my time? And I say no, because if you score below it, doing the homework will actually bump you up a grade. So if you've gotten the 70s, which would usually be a C, having done the homework, those scores will bump you up into B range. Okay? And I bet you if you get in the 90s and you did all the homework, it was probably doing the homework that helped you get to that 90. Yes?
So, I did the quiz
Mm-hmm.
in the first one, but I didn't do the homework.
Uh-huh.
So I then went back to do the homework because I
Sure.
thought maybe the homework was what you wanted us to do and then, take the quiz. So does it matter which one you are doing? I don't understand what you're
Good.
wanting.
I don't want anything. I want you to learn. This is the weirdest thing, is I want you to learn the material, and I'll assess that in multiple ways.
Okay.
So if you learn by doing the homework and the quizzes, maybe you need to do both, and then you'll do well on the test. If you do well on the test, I've had students that, and maybe they didn't study. I mean, sometimes I could get by math without studying, and I'd show up and I'd do fine on the test. It eventually sort of catches up to you if you really don't know what you're doing. But, some of you, again, you're at different places. So, and some of you do the quiz and you start remembering, I did all this stuff in high school, or I did it, last time I took this class, or whatever, and it comes back. Your grade is not based on what you did, it's going to be based on what you know.
What you know. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. You were first.
Oh.
You're it.
Yeah, so if we're doing well on the homework but not the test, like is there a way?
Yeah, as long as you're doing the homework, it will help bump up the test. So if you're a person who knows you don't do well in testing situations, doing the homework will bump you up a whole grade point on your test.
Okay.
The other thing I do allow is some corrections, and I do allow retests if it's a complete bomb. Okay? Question.
This is for every test, right?
For every test. Why? Yeah. And in the, yes.
What are you, when you say test, are you using that word interchangeably for exam over the first 4 units?
Yes. So, yeah, I'm only talking about the in-class tests. So we will have 3 of them this semester.
I call it exam, but.
An exam, yeah, whatever we want. I call them learning assessments. Your opportunity to show me how much you know. And again, if it turns out good, boom, I don't care what happened in the past. You learned it enough that you were fine, okay? So I don't want you focusing on what you need to do, just what you need to learn.
So if you've done the homework, is it required for us to do either, not the exam, the test or the quiz or both?
No.
To do the homework.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
If you want to attempt the quiz or the test, you can.
Yeah, the quizzes are there to kind of maybe, because notice it was only 10 questions. If you want to take the quiz first and you go through and you did just fine, maybe you understood that section, go ahead, move on to the next. I'm fine with that. Because then you're going to get this, and there's no points attached to this, but I'll bet you this is the 24 questions you should really do deeply, because this is what the test, whoever wrote this, they looked at the test and they made up this to get you ready for the test. Okay, I'm going to look at the test again and make sure that these will get you ready, and if not, I will get some more questions to make sure, like, you're a pinpoint. Because when I look at a question, I don't just look for a similar one. I look, is this question on the test being tricky? And if it is, I will give you a similar trickiness question. Because sometimes we do that, and I will point out what kind of trick it's trying to pull on you. So if you come and work that with me, you will know, hey, that one is not only hard, it's got a trick to it, and I will not be fooled by that trick.
Are you going to give us a copy of that?
Yeah, as soon as I stop talking. That's the hardest thing for me to do. See, I just needed someone to ask the question.
What's the word of the day?
Great.
What's that?
Great.
Great. Great is the word.
Great.
Grade or great?
Great.
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 Macaroni and cheese.
So Wednesday is really an open day. So we will look at this. I will hopefully at some point in time do a video where I work through all of these so you can watch them. To be realistic, it might not happen before Wednesday. It might not happen until Thursday, but I'll do it and I'll get it there. So it will happen before test day. What's happening on Monday, February 19th? President's Day, which means we aren't here. Anyone want an extra copy for their friend?
That's awesome.
Okay, so one important thing. Let's put it on here. Let's see. Let's do it in yellow. Oops. Crossed it out. And can anyone know who's the most famous person who says great?
Mr. Trump.
No. That's it. You're great. Frosted Flakes are great. So that might be how I asked the question, yeah. What did Tony the Tiger say? Great. Okay. So that's our word of the day. You have the rest of the time to begin working on this. And again, I'll get some videos for this at some point in time. But these are 24 very important questions. And try to work through the ones that you understand, and then skip over the ones that are kind of blocking you for right now, and then come back later to those. And Wednesday, we will definitely take questions from any of these 24. We'll work through them, and then whatever we don't get covered, I'll do in a video. Next Monday, there is no class, but when we come back on Wednesday, we will be having the test. So you can kind of get in touch. Yeah, next Monday, no class.
Wednesday.
A week from this Wednesday, so next week, that's when the test is scheduled. And again, if you're really not ready, you don't have to make an excuse like I got stomach flu or something, or my tire blew out. Fine. You don't have to make an excuse, but if you don't feel ready for it, I would rather you take it later, so I can have you taken to the testing center. Just say, but contact me and say, I'm not ready. Can I take it later? And what I would expect is that you have it done by class time on Monday, the following Monday. Okay. Gives you an extra weekend if you need it. But if you're ready, Wednesday's a good opportunity. Show up and do it. Yes.
So writing the story of X is not solving, right?
Correct. It's saying what is happening to X. So you go from X, I multiply X by 2, then I add 1 to the result, and then I multiply all of that by 3.
No.
Oh, you like actually write all?
Yeah. You could shorthand it. You could use symbols. No, it doesn't. If you run the race 4 seconds less, then time takes your brother on the race, represents your brother's time in terms of your time. X, your time is X. You run 4 seconds less than it takes for your brother. So your brother is 4 times more, so his would actually be X plus 4. You are fast.
Okay.
It's your brother's time. X is your time.
So it's like X plus 4.
Yes, that's it.
No, you're not solving. Yeah, you're not solving. You're just saying, here's this.
Okay, those on the live stream, I think we're done. So have a good evening, and we'll see you later. Hopefully it was streaming.